Hi, I'm Patricia Allingham Carlson, and this is part 2 of my painting, Blue Jay Dreams. I called it Blue Jay Dreams because it looks like the little bird is gazing off into the horizon, and he looks very happy and contented, so I just thought of it as a Blue Jay dream. In part 2, I first developed the background. I work some more on the sticks. I add some salt for texture on the sticks, which is a very fun process, and then I work with leaves. To evaluate where leaves and sticks should be shaped and placed, I actually do gather leaves from outside as well as sticks and put them on the paper, arranging them in different manners to see what looks right. After I got that going, I went back to the bird and darkened some areas just to make them accented correctly. It came together pretty nicely in part 2, and I hope that you enjoy the video. Give it a thumbs up if you do, please. Now let's paint. In the reference photo, there was a stick in the background. So I paint it very wet, and I'm letting it sort of blur and go its own way. And building on the stick. I decided I wanted the stick surface to be sort of textured and not highly defined. So I'm putting in some different colors and sprinkling salt onto the wet paint. As the salt dries, it will create some nice textured patterns that could suggest some bark. And I'm wetting the upper portion of the stick now and putting a variety of colors onto that as well. Started with some burnt sienna, which I then touched into the lower area as well. Some more yellow ochre. And some browns. And then I mixed some Van Dyke brown and some indigo to make a deep color. I'm not painting that deep color everywhere because shadows are not highly consistent. They do come and go. A little more burnt sienna. And I'm adding some cobalt blue just to carry the color of the bird into the stick and to try to homogenize the colors so they sort of carry over from one section to the other in some places. And last, I sprinkle on some more salt. developing a few blurs of leaves around the top stick. And I mix together some of the Quin magenta and some purple to make some faint stick impressions in the background of the painting as well. It is dry and I'm wiping off all the salt. Some of it dried in place and got rather crusty, but I did get some nice textures. And I felt that it might need some leaves. So I went outside and picked a couple leaves off of a bush, decided where they might look best, and approached them very softly. First, I'm working on the branch, the bird's foot curling around the branch, and then some textural marks on the branch itself, as well as tying it together with shadowing for the bird's foot. I had to look at a reference photo to see what a bird's foot actually would look like curling around a branch, because that's not something I usually observe. I'm adding some deep accent colors in some places at the bottom of the branch, as well as some markings. And as you can see, I'm looking at one of the sticks I have in my art studio, which had some interesting textures and curls in it. And it helps me to get some ideas on how to make an interesting stick painting. And something I try to do is curl and curve the lines around the stick, because a stick is not a flat object, and it does have a dimensionality that you could show by curving your lines and textures around it, as well as by shading underneath and keeping the top a little lighter. And now for the leaves. I place them until I think they look sort of right. And I decided to make them in a very soft manner. So I'm using pale watercolor. I'm adding more paint into the wet areas and letting them be soft. I am painting on a clear stem for my stick model for the leaves to be attached to the tree. Adding various colors of green. Sap green, turquoise, yellow ochre, and some verditer. Was that the word? Verditer. Verditer blue in some places. The leaves that are further away are my blurriest, lightest leaves. And I decide to enhance where the bird's whites of his underbelly are by adding greens next to them. And I think that brought out the whites a little bit more. After I paint some soft background leaves, I paint some more clearly defined leaves in front of them. I'm trying to show the leaves from different angles as well. They aren't all perfectly straight on. Some are sideways and some look thinner. Some only have sections showing. And I believe this would add to the naturalness of the appearance of the leaves. Somewhere at this point, I got back a little bit from the whole picture and looked at it from a distance because it was feeling very close to being completed. But I do believe you need to get away from your painting. Oh, I'd say at least 8 feet away, 10 feet away. In my case, I prop it up against the wall, go outside and look in through the ground floor window. And it gives me a better perspective on the painting. Adding another layer of darks on the bands in the feathers and making some of the bands in the tail a little wider. After stepping back, I softened one of the leaves did some more work on the branch in the far background. And I started to work on a little splatter I'd made by accident. Frequently you could take a spatter off. In this case it was not coming nicely, so ultimately I decided to put a leaf on top of it, keeping it very soft because it was further back. And I think with watercolor, if you're flexible, you could do that kind of thing. Gotta go with the flow, and I think a lot of watercolorists do that. I didn't like how the lower greens ended suddenly into white, so I decided to bring them off the edge of the page by making some more leaf shapes in there. And they are soft by adding a lot of water to the color and keeping them very light with a soft outer shape. And I'm adding a few soft leaves to the rest of the painting as well. I don't believe I've ever done leaves in this manner before. I was pretty happy with how they came out, keeping them soft and then adding a couple on top that would be a bit darker. My evaluation process covering up the different sides of the painting to see what might be needed, adding a little bit more accent color for what my eye saw as a balance need. And at that point it was done. I'm putting on my signature and calling it done. I hope you enjoyed my videos of Blue Jay Dreams. You can subscribe below at the links, and if you click on the bell, you'll get a notice whenever I post a new video. Also below there's some links to check out for the products I like to use, for my Facebook art page. I write a blog, and various prints and products that I make out of my art. Now you keep creating, and I'll see you next video.